Lauren Doyle here. Welcome to our coffee coaching session about working with young horses before they're ready to go under saddle. And first we start with the halter preparatory work. I like to use a rope because they're not used to the halter yet. So I can easily catch them with that. And then I use that to rub it over their nose. Get them used to that on both sides because it's moving on both sides, over their eyes, over their ears. And then it's touching them on both sides just the way your halter would, but it's not actually your halter yet. And you can see it from a different angle on both sides, again, over the eyes, over the ears. And it's happening on both sides of them because it's just a loop in your rope. I get them used to being touched in all the places that they would be touched with the halter. And now putting the halter on. I like to give them the invitation with the halter that if they wanted to look at it before I actually put it on, then I give them that opportunity. And as you can see, I don't slide against the hairs. I just lift it over their nose to put it on so it doesn't rub against their nose hairs. Pet them underneath the chin and pet them in all the areas that I know I'm going to be moving to get the halter on. In Legacy of Legends, actually, someone mentioned about when you're putting a halter on a horse for the first time, make sure both your hands are moving on both sides so that you don't surprise them. And I think that's a really good tip. I get that halter tied on. Take the rope off. Then they're ready to start doing some work. First thing I work on when you get the halter on is bending. I like to bend them on each side. And you can see there I put a little pressure on, but just enough that the halter moves, and I wait until they bend their head. And I like to see that their head will stay perpendicular to the ground. So they stay really soft, but their head stays perpendicular to the ground. And that's a really good sign of relaxation. Next, you want to move their hind end around. When you first go to do this, you'll probably have to maybe put your hand or your thumb on where your leg would go and put a little pressure on there until they move their hind end. And then as soon as they make the movement to go, release the pressure, and soon you'll get this. That's nice and smooth, a nice loop in my halter or in my rope. Next is tail work. This is a trust spot test. This is a good thing to do with ears and tails and under the belly, those sorts of places. And you can see there he moved a little bit, which means he's still not entirely comfortable with this. And you'll see a little snap in the tail when I move the tail over. That just says to me that there's still some tension there, and you want to get that just as smooth as you can. It's a big deal for the horse when you can get that really smooth. And then I pet along the sides and see if I can get him to lift his tail up for me before I try to lift his tail from underneath, which is the soft spot of his tail. And you can see there he lifted it nicely for me, and then I'm able to put my hand underneath there and lift it up pretty softly. Doing some leg work with your rope with your young horses is great preparatory work for when you get on. This first, just start out by swinging the rope at their legs. You can see him moving a little bit. He's not entirely sure about it. But this gets them used to different things touching their legs. Then I rub the rope up and down their legs. And I also try, you can see here, I'm not pulling. I just have some pressure there. And he's checking out what that means. And I get him to try and let me direct his foot. So you'll see here in a minute, he'll rock back so he can take the weight off of that leg. He's trying to figure out what to do. He rocks back there, takes the weight off, and he lets me direct the foot where I want it. I then try again, and you'll see it just takes a little bit less time. There, he lets me direct the foot where I want it. I then do the same thing with the hind legs. So you can see here how I rub the rope in between. I get that rope going so they get used to it touching on the inside and outside and all over. This is actually really helpful. This was last fall. He was much smaller then, as you can see. but it's helpful for teaching them to pick up their feed and all sorts of things. So this is going to be continued next week, but this is a few things to get you started.
If you have a question for Clinic Horsemanship, be sure to go to ClinicHorsemanship.com and click on the orange button, and you'll be able to ask us a question with a voicemail. You're also welcome to send me an email or leave a comment, and I will go through those for your questions as well. See you next week.